Hi all, in this video I want to chat a little bit about We Are, a new authoring tool to me that I was introduced to through the eLearning Designers Academy for the October challenge. So this is my very first story I've created in it. You can see the 130 views are all me going through to edit and decide on kind of different iterations as I was going through this project. So I want to start with a few things I really love about this, a few challenges I had along the way. Some of you may have some input to help me through those, and a couple of improvements I would love to see with this authoring tool. First thing that I really loved is being able to choose your own characters and setting. The characters, you can choose from a variety of pre-made characters, and you can even pick their voice from a variety of different AI voices. And they are better than I was expecting, a lot better than I've experienced from a lot of AI authoring tools. The setting as well, you can see back here I have a pharmacy setting. You can choose one of WeAre's pre-made settings, or you can use the integration they have with ChatGPT to create your own with the right prompts, which is what I did. I have the pharmacy setting from the front here, and then I also created it to look like the same pharmacy from behind the counter. My training includes a pharmacy tech that we're, as the learner, kind of shadowing, and I wanted that feeling of being behind them and shadowing them on the job. So let's go back to my initial location. Great. So that's one feature I really love. So much customization available, endless opportunities to create different settings using that ChatGPT integration. Or if you have another image that you want to use for a setting, you can import that as well. All right, something else I really loved about this was being able to import media elements. So you can create things elsewhere. I use Adobe Express to make some things like posters. I'll show an example of here. So here's a poster I created just to give some information, and there's some customization options with the
Being able to analyze.
And hotspots. So hotspots are where you can create your own image or import something else, and the user can click on the hotspots. So I really loved the hotspot nodes as well. But I liked being able to import media into some of the other node elements here. We'll talk about the nodes in just a second because, oh, there's just so much to love about this. So let's take a look. Here is a dialogue node. I have two different characters. On this node, you can see here, this is our pharmacy tech. She's turned around talking to us as the learner. Again, I wanted it to feel like we're shadowing her for the day and she's giving us some tips and information. So here you input your dialogue and the audio output happens in seconds. I was amazed at how quick it is. After you put the text in, you have your audio right away. The media elements, you can see here, these are all different media elements that I've added here. So one of them is a little tip here from one of my posters earlier. I also created and imported a little scale to see how angry our customer is, if we are escalating the anger or de-escalating as we are supposed to throughout the training. So those were some of the things I really liked about being able to import the media. So one of the challenges I ran into, and I did find a great solution, was making this. I'm going to pull up a different node here. Okay, this media element right here is the desk. I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to go ahead and change the size. That's the little teeny tiny desk. So when I created my background, I also took just the desk as an element and imported that as media, and I sized it to fit so it looks just like a desk there. And I did that to create the feeling of being behind the desk and the customer being on the other side. Now I want to show you one of the things that was a challenge here is the depth. Here they're both on one side of the desk, and here they're both on the other. So it was kind of finding that sweet spot for where it looked correct. Now, to complicate things, there are different gestures the characters do throughout, and I found that sometimes when they moved their arms, I'll kind of show you what they look like when they're using
Well,
gestures.
what's going on? What are you going to do about this?
See how she moves her arms? Sometimes they were kind
Well,
of
what?
ghosting through the desk if it wasn't the right depth. So I really had to experiment with that and figure it out. But the reason it works so well is because rather than having to always drag and drop and resize the media that way, you can choose exactly where you want it on the screen and exactly how big to make it and what the depth is. And you can use those same numbers in other nodes once you figure that out. If you know that you want to use this for a lot of nodes, I highly recommend instead of creating the whole node map first, going in and you can with an individual node, if I know that I really like how I set up the desk in this node, I can duplicate that node. So those were a few of the features I liked, especially about the media elements. Now let's talk about this node map. If you've created branching scenarios, you know it's easy for them to get a little out of control while you're in that creation process. When I'm creating, kind of my map, it kind of reminds me of using Miro to do like an action map. It just like really tickles my brain the right way, the way this works. But everything is integrated into one rather than having a separate script. Once the script is put into We Are, you can see the map visually the whole time. There's no extra step in there. You don't have to keep going back and forth between your authoring tool and the map you've created on how you want the scenario to go. I can see very clearly here from this dialogue node, these are my 3 response choices, A, B, and C. And then I can see the path the learner takes from those. And watch this, is so cool. You can move things on the node map however it makes sense organizationally. So if you want to put something in between there, you can move them around and you can add connections, put nodes in between there. It is very cool. So that is one of the things I really like is the ability to move things around on the node map. The one thing I would like to be able to move is the start node. You can't move the start node. So if anyone from We Are is watching, would love to be able to move that start node. I know it sounds a little bit silly, but I decided to add some things at the beginning after I had created my map. So you can still see it follows a path here, but I would have liked to make that more linear. So I would have loved to have a start node, be able to move that around. All right, so those are the nodes. And again, you'll really have to experiment with it to get to know all the different types of nodes. It is so cool. But just kind of look here, you can see the visual response nodes here, the path that we're taking. I really like a kind of bottleneck approach or something like a bottleneck approach where sometimes things do come together so it doesn't get too out of hand. But then you can see again where they have more options and it can lead them down some different pathways before reaching a resolution here. And then I have it attached to a second scenario. I designed this one again like a training. So the first one, the pharmacy tech is turning around and giving us a lot of advice and telling us some tips of what to do. And then when we get to the second scenario here with a different customer that walks in, there isn't as much of that help. We're just making the decisions without the extra tips and information from the pharmacy tech. Now, one of my very favorite things, and I also do have a request for We Are, is the skills section. You can gamify this a little bit by having each response connect to specific skill or skills. And then you can give feedback at the end based on that. So here I can write, great job de-escalating a tense situation with empathy, whatever you want to put in there, they're going to be able to see that feedback at the end. And you can put that for each of these little places they can land in. Now it also shows up, if you would like it to, when you choose different responses. So I'll show you an example of that. Let's go back to our first scenario here.
Well, what's going on? What are you going to do about this?
So she's very angry. I put a little media element with a tip on we're supposed to be focusing on using empathy to build connection, a little reminder. So let's choose the response that uses empathy to build connection, except let's not, just for fun. Let's see.
First, you will need to calm down. There is no reason to raise your voice.
Don't you dare tell me to calm down. I have.
So she's very upset, and you could see the little red boxes popped up to show, ooh, you did not do a great job with de-escalating or with problem solving here. So you get that little bit of feedback along the way, but then at the very end, you can get more feedback on that. Let me give you an example of that. I have two end nodes here. This is based on the second scenario with Mr. Daniels, who's very upset about a prescription price. If the learner comes to a resolution with Mr. Daniels, I have it leading to a success node, and there's several different ways that you could have met a resolution with him, and several different ways that maybe you didn't reach a resolution. So I have a success and a fail end. So you can have multiple different endings here, and I'll show you what that looks like.
Let's take a look at your final score to see how you did with empathy and de-escalation, as well as problem solving and resolution.
So here, this node is the end node for success. So I chose to have it say, congratulations, you helped Mr. Daniels reach a resolution. Take a look at your score and see how you did overall. Now we have zeros because I just clicked on this one node. We didn't actually do the training right now, but under each of these categories, depending on where we land here in the red to the green, you would see written feedback based on what I typed there with the skills. And I really love the customization of that feedback. My one request, again, if you're watching, I would love the ability to do a type of end node in the middle of the training. Hear me out, because with this scenario, again, I have the first customer that the pharmacy tech helps the learner out with a lot, and then the second customer they don't help with at all. I would love the opportunity to give specific feedback based on the skills at the end of the first customer, but then continue on to the next customer in the same training. So that's one thing I'd really love to see, but the end nodes themselves are really great. The last thing I want to talk about is the gestures. If you saw the angry customer gesturing, the pharmacy tech being surprised and taken aback, you can customize all of that. Let me give you an example here. Let's go back earlier in the scenario. Here's a good one. So when you type the text into your node, the audio automatically generates. You can also click auto animate. If you auto animate, it will come up with the body language and gestures for you, which is great if you're looking for a quick way to edit your slides or nodes. But I wanted to control it a little bit more, so I thought I would start with auto animate and then go through and change some things. The only issue I ran into was this. Let me show you. Okay, body language. You can choose body languages here. There are so many different ones. It's very cool. Some of them are very neutral, or you can have body languages that show these kind of different emotions. But then the gestures specifically, so many gestures. You can have them dab. I don't know why my pharmacy tech would be dabbing, so I didn't use that one. But the one issue I had was after it was auto-animated, and let's say there was a gesture here that I thought, oh, I just want to change this one gesture to something else, or maybe just add one in between here. It was a little bit tough to do. I would love where the media elements have this swap image feature where you can just swap a new image in. I would love that for the gestures, because right now there's no swapping. You can delete a gesture, but then the problem is when you go to add a new gesture, it automatically adds it at the very end of the timeline. And this is a more text-heavy node for me. This is as long as my text really gets. And by the way, with text-heavy nodes, I would break it up with some visuals going on just to help the learner stay focused. But this is a longer dialogue node. It does create an issue where I decided not to auto-animate a lot of them because I knew I wanted really specific gestures. So that was one minor complaint about that, something I'd love to see added in the future. But the other customization with the gestures is amazing. You can choose the facial expressions they're using, and even if they're looking at the learner, if they're looking at the customer or another person in the scenario, or you can customize directions they're looking and how much they're looking that way. So there is a lot of customization you can do with the gestures and expressions to fit what's happening on the screen, which makes it feel a lot more real and immersive. You don't have the like uncanny valley effect of the characters, which is great, but you do have the realism of the right gestures and facial expressions, which is a really cool feature of VR. So there may be some things that you're watching this and you have found some great solutions to. I would love to hear about those. And if you are wondering how I accomplished anything that I did in this training, you can watch the whole thing, my whole project. It's just under 10 minutes on the link in this blog post. But if you have any questions about how I accomplished anything else in it, feel free to reach out. I'm happy to respond or make a quick video tutorial. But I would love to hear from you. If you are trying out We Are Learning for the first time, or if you're more experienced with it, what are you loving about it? And what do you want to see added in the future?